I slept. Literally all the recommendations are BTS. Sorry about
All right. Hello. I think we're live. And yeah, I am. Hi. We were just, Zuleha and I were joking about the fact that, oh no, I have to mute the TV. Panic.
No. Yeah, I am. Hi.
How do I mute the TV? Panic.
I think it's just the YouTube player that you gotta mute.
Mute the TV. Panic.
How about now?
Oh, that worked. Oh, thank God for Zuleha. Otherwise, everything would be terrible. I was looking at a remote because that's how you used to mute things back in the day. Hi, I'm mostly just here to give you an update and to say thank you for donating to Partners in Health Sierra Leone. Zuleha and I were joking about the fact that I think we're on her computer and all of the recommended videos in the sidebar are BTS videos, which is fascinating because it's just not my world. But I like that it's other people's world and that it brings them so much joy and excitement and happiness. Hello. So first, thank you for, obviously, thank you for donating to PIH. I just wanted to give everybody I guess, begin by giving a financial update and then talk about what we can do, if anything. I mean, I think making these more regular will be important, and finding a way to do a better job of talking about when they happen will be important. Part of the challenge of that is for legal reasons, PIH, well, for legal reasons and also for like ease of life reasons, Partners in Health has your donor info and I don't have it and I can't get it. And I don't want to be able to get it, to be clear. So I can't email you. Like, for lack of that's the easiest way to summarize it, is that I can't email you. PIH has to email you if it's about this, right? And I may not have your email address in a different context because that's the way that it's organized. So that is not probably going to change because we want Partners in Health to we want this to be this is their project. They are building the maternal center of excellence. So that's appropriate, but it also creates a challenge when it comes to like wanting to give those of you who are within Nerdfighteria updates, because 5,000 people got this email, but it came from Partners in Health, which made, and like lots of people don't open emails, period. And B, it was about a live stream that was scheduled for 4 days later. You got to like put it in your calendar. It may not be enough of a priority to put it in your calendar. Hopefully people will be able to watch this later. But we would like to figure out ways to more regularly connect with you. And so I think maybe part of the way that we do that, I think we have regular live streams, but I also think part of the way that we do it potentially is by having some kind of ongoing within Nerdfighteria space for conversations around the strengthening of the healthcare system in Kono and throughout Sierra Leone. So on that front, I think I'm going to ask some of the folks who work on Life's Library and within the Tuataria community to start a Discord channel. I know not everybody uses Discord or likes Discord. I find it overwhelming a lot of times, but I also think that it's a way, it's a hub, and I feel like we need a hub of some kind. And so that seems to me like the most reasonable hub. Maybe there's also a way to create a Slack channel. I don't really know how that works, but I feel like having channels, some kind of organizing principle in this kind of subset of the community is really important. And so that's something that I want to figure out in the next month. And I'll need your help on that front. So hopefully you will be able to join that community and then get more regular updates and also be able to receive updates from a variety of places. So that's one update that I wanted to give, and also like think about how best to do that with y'all. And then there are a few other things. I guess just a very brief kind of broad financial overview. And those of you who are matching donors may already know some of this, and I apologize if it's redundant. But in order to break ground on the Maternal Center of Excellence, Partners in Health needs to have $20 million in the bank or pledged. I think $20.3 million. That 0.3 is $300,000, so it's no small matter. $20.3 million in the bank or pledged in order to break ground. 10 of that, so you can think of that in two buckets, largely. This is an oversimplification, but you can think of it in two buckets. There is the $10 million that is going to come from Hank and Catherine and Sarah and me personally. 6.5 of that is going to come from us personally, and then 3.5 is going to come from other sources that we will be responsible for, whether that's touring or DFTBA or whatever. So that is one bucket, if you want to think of it as a bucket. Then there is a second bucket that needs $10.3 million. Of that, we there's, I think, broadly speaking, we are about 30% there, which means that broadly speaking, we're over 50% total. So there's $1 million that came in from one PIH supporter, I think anonymously. There's $1 million that hasn't been announced yet, but is very exciting. And then, so don't tell anyone. And then we are very close to bringing in $1 million a year from Nerdfighteria. Now, that was my whole goal, was to get to $1 million a year. Andrew Ferger's here. That's amazing. Even though he's not with Partners in Health anymore. I think that's him anyway. Hi, Andrew. I hope you're well. I miss you. So here's how that breaks down. We are very close to $500,000 raised in the matching fund. I think it's $485,000. So very close there. And then, well, I'm only telling 42 people. We're very close there. And then in monthly donations that are coming in, we're over $37,000 a month, which is amazing. Like, that's more than Crash Course or SciShow bring in Patreon. It is truly amazing. And that's after only a few months. It's amazing. So thank you. And so at $42,000 a month, that would be $500,000 a year, I think. And then the $500,000 in matching funds that people have donated would come together to equal $1 million a year in like semi-ongoing revenue. Now, obviously, not everybody who donates monthly can afford to continue that donation indefinitely. And so there will be some drop off, but hopefully there will also be new people coming in. So that level would be amazing. Like, and we're very close to that level already. And that's ongoing long-term money. I think most of the matching donors, not all of them certainly, but most of the matching donors are looking at this as a long-term ongoing project and understand that it won't end after 1 year. And obviously most of the monthly donors do because they're thinking about this in an ongoing way. Lots of people are only able to donate one time, but that money that's come in from one-time donors, even if you spread it out over 12 months, it's still a lot. So we're going to be able to raise $1 million this year, which was the goal. I keep wanting this in graphs and charts. Yeah, I know. I should have made a graph. Even my dad told me. My dad called me after the last live stream, and he was like, "Why don't you just have this in a chart? It's very confusing to just talk about out loud." And the answer is, I don't know how to make a chart. I'll make a chart for next month. That's my goal. I'll make it. There will be a chart and a Discord a month from today. So that, anyway, that ongoing revenue is going to be hugely important because one of the things that's highlighted in the, I don't know if, I know that not everybody has read the annual report that I keep talking about. And I know it's like kind of annoying to be asked to read an annual report when you've already donated money. It's like, no, I already did the thing. Don't make me read an annual report. But it's a properly interesting annual report, guys. And it's really good on mobile too. And so the annual report talks about how one of the, and this is something that we've heard a lot from folks in Sierra Leone. One of the challenges is when the healthcare system hasn't worked for a long time. It's only 15 years since the end of the Sierra Leonean Civil War, and the Ebola outbreak really set the healthcare system back. But the healthcare system was never strong. And it's important to understand that in the context. Partners in Health says they'll make me a chart. That speaks to my level of incompetence. I can make a chart. I believe in myself. I will make a chart. So anyway, one of the things that folks have highlighted for us in Sierra Leone, and that you see talked about in the part of the report that's under if you go to PIHSierraLeone.com, there's a letter from John Lasher, who's the head of PIH Sierra Leone. And then if you go to the Our Impact page, there's a lot of great detail about the expansion of mental health care in Sierra Leone, including in Kono, where 300% more people are receiving mental health care than ever have. But there's also a lot about maternal health and the Maternal Center of Excellence, and also about how improving supply chains is leading to it being possible to treat diseases that were until very recently considered untreatable in Kono, whether that's cancer or type 1 diabetes. You can get care, or people are starting to get care. But because the healthcare system is so weak for so long, there's a lack of trust in the healthcare system, an appropriate lack of trust. Because still, like if you go to, when we were in Kono last year, there's one primary care clinic, and I'm going to make a video about this. There's one primary care clinic called the Wellbody Clinic that is excellent. I mean, any of us would be happy, I think, with the level of care that you receive at Wellbody Clinic. And it is so utilized. In fact, people come from far and wide to go to Wellbody Clinic. They haven't had a maternal death there in 3 years in a country where 1 in 17 women will die in pregnancy or childbirth. There are hundreds. I mean, we were there on a day when there were hundreds of patients. So there is a huge amount of need for healthcare. And when a system like Wellbody is working, people utilize it. The amount of utilization increases dramatically. It's the same, but if you go to different areas of Kono where the clinics are not yet well supported, where there is no electricity, there is no running water, there are also no patients, because there's not a lot of good care that you can get there, right? Like the pharmacy, such as it is is incredibly poorly stocked. There's no antibiotics for adults. And then there's no air conditioning in the room where the drugs are kept. So the efficacy of the drugs goes down every day. And so in those places, in those primary care centers, most of the people who come in to get their kids vaccinated. And you might, and they might see 10 or 12 patients a day getting vaccines, kids getting vaccines. And it's great. I mean, that's great. It's great that there's a vaccine storage system, even though there's no electricity, and that people are able to get vaccines. But the system is underutilized because the system isn't working. And as the system starts to work better, it will be more utilized. And that's something that I think PIH has seen from Rwanda to Haiti. And so this ongoing support that many of you are providing through your monthly donations is going to be really key, because it's not easy to raise money to build a building, as I've learned. But it is easier to raise money to build a building than it is to raise money to provide ongoing support for that building, to fund not just the feel-good story of there was no maternal center of excellence and now there is one, there was no NICU and now there is one, which is a great story and is absolutely necessary, but also that, like, if there is no well-trained staff, if there are no supplies, if there's no medication in that building, then the building just becomes an empty shell. And anybody who's traveled in impoverished countries sees that again and again and again. There's so much energy in development and aid work around getting something built. People get really excited about an idea, whether it's building a school or building a clinic, and they build the school or the clinic, and then there is no ongoing support for it. And that is what ultimately makes it impossible for it to become the place that it needs to be to eventually reach a point where the quality of care is good and consistent, and you have a healthcare system like you do in Rwanda, or even like you do in the regions of Haiti where PIH is most active. So that statement of ongoing monthly support is really important, and that's something that Hank and I are really focused on. So we are really focused on not just making sure we would like to be able to continue making gifts after this 5-year period, but this 5-year period is kind of what we can plan for, and we don't know what our professional lives will look like in 5 years or what the wider world will look like. God knows we don't. But we'd like to be able to make ongoing gifts, but this is why we're structuring the other things that we're doing around generating ongoing long-term revenue to support the people who are living in impoverished communities, and especially the most vulnerable people in those communities, which in the case of Sierra Leone is women and kids. So yeah, all of which is to say that we are focused on and concerned about raising the money or helping PIH raise the money that needs to be raised to break ground on the Maternal Center of Excellence. But we are also really focused on making sure that the long-term ongoing support is there to support it. And those monthly donations may not be a huge chunk toward that $20 million, but they are a tremendous, tremendous thing in terms of the long-term support that will be necessary to make this work in an ongoing way. So that's where my concern is, or that's where I'm trying to focus right now. And I'm really, really excited to see over $37,000 a month in monthly donations, and to see the matching fund close in on $500,000, because to bring $1 million a year to the healthcare system in Kono is really transformative. So yeah, I want to answer some of your questions. Just for those of you who are new here, because I know there are a bunch of people who just came in. At the beginning, I talked about how we're going to try to set up a Discord or some kind of Slack channel, or maybe both, over the next month to keep people updated in an ongoing, informal way, and also so that you can build communities with each other, because always those are the best. Like any community that Hank and I try to form top down fails, and every community that y'all build bottom up succeeds. So we have long since given up and trust y'all to make great communities. And this is something I'm thinking a lot about too, because I think big communities are less powerful, to be frank. I think that Sarah has a beautiful phrase for this. She talks about communities of the present. And there are many, like Twitter is the ultimate community of the present. Everyone who is present is part of the community, but if you drop out of the community, nobody notices, because it's a community of the present and there are still plenty of voices. And so in some ways you get some support from those kind of like big communities of the present, but you don't get the kind of deep support that you get from a community where people do notice that you're not around, and they check on you and they worry about you and they hope that you're well. And we all need those communities in our lives, and big communities just can't solve for that. And so it's also an opportunity to build a space where hopefully people can find that. I think we're trying to do that with Life's Library through the shelves. We have a book club, for those of you who don't know, called the Life's Library. We're trying to do it through we're trying to do it through supporting various different strategies for building these communities that can be more robust and more genuinely helpful in people's lives. And we think this is a great, maybe for some of you at least, like this is a great opportunity to organize around a cause that's really important, that really matters to you. And thank you all for I know there are many people in Tuataria and Life's Library who are here, and thank you both for running amazing communities and for already offering to help on this thing that I didn't tell you about until just now. I appreciate it. But yeah, so that was one update, and then the other update was just financial. That we are in total money raised near $13 million, $1 million of which hasn't really been announced yet, but I'm excited to announce it when we get to $13 million toward the 20.3 that needs to be raised to break ground on the Maternal Center of Excellence. I say this every time, but I'll say it this time too. If any of you happen to know a billionaire who is interested in global health, let me know. Send me an email. Be happy to talk to them. Or even someone with $100 million or $10 million who understands that nobody on earth needs $10 million. I'll talk to anybody. But that's been an interesting education for me, because part of what I've learned is that even people who have I've talked to a lot of people who have a lot of money, and it has to be something that they care about. It has to be something that they're passionate about. They understand the scope of the problem, and they understand that PIH has an amazing plan to work with the Sierra Leonean Ministry of Health and solve that problem. If somebody's not interested in global health, they're not interested in problems of impoverished communities, there's no getting, or at least I haven't succeeded in getting them interested in it. So, but let me know always feel free to reach out. My email is sparkslap@gmail.com. Somebody will write it in the comments, but doesn't John know a billionaire interested in global health? Yeah, the billionaire I know who's interested in global health is already doing a lot, genuinely. I mean, including a lot of support for PIH. So he's unavailable for this, but there are others. Also, we end up this is slightly off topic, but billionaires are such a focus of our cultural discourse. both like it's a weird love-hate relationship that Americans at least have with billionaires, where like we're disgusted that anyone can accrue this much wealth, but at the same time, like we're sort of fascinated by their lives and their choices, and like when they become like edgy meme lords, we sort of love it. And I am troubled by that on a lot of levels, but also it lets millionaires off the hook in ways that bother me. Like millionaires also have too much money, and really it wasn't until I was confronted with that reality that I became uncomfortable enough to try to start thinking hard about what I should be doing with the wealth that I lucked into. Not just the wealth, but also the power and the platform that I lucked into. And it was luck. And that's kind of a hard thing to accept a lot of times, I think, but it was. Yeah. So anyway, what's the best way you found, John, to ask people to donate? Honestly, I don't know. You might be able to tell me what works better than I can tell you. I mean, I can tell you what worked with PIH making the case to me, which was, you know, I felt like I didn't need to go to Sierra Leone, and I kind of went because I mostly went to make videos because I felt like, oh, I want to make videos to make the case. But being there was very instructive for me, and I learned a lot. But I feel like I make the case best through videos because that's what I know how to make. Like that's what I'm good at making, and that's what I have experience doing. And so I don't know how to make. I'm not a development officer. Like Andrew, who's here, is amazing. And there are so many people at PIH who are amazing at communicating the scope of the need and the solidity of the plan. And I am not good at that yet, but I'm getting better. I'm trying to learn. Queen Games just made a great point, which is that America is a unique place and that everyone thinks of themselves as being a pre-billionaire, which is a damning and very accurate indictment of the American culture. But yeah, I think in general, I like to make videos, and that's what I'm good at. And yeah, so, and I think you know, I also think, you know, in general, I'm trying to focus on that I need to do more rather than feeling annoyed or frustrated by what other people aren't doing. Like I also need to do more. And so it's not, you know, like I'm not really in a position where I can say like, oh, why isn't this person or that person doing more to address big injustices in the world? Like I'm not doing nearly enough. So yeah, there's a line in the Gospels about paying attention to the speck in someone else's eye and not noticing the plank in your own. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to focus on these days. Is it different trying to ask rich people for money? Yes. And I also don't really know how to talk to them. And I mean, I don't want to generalize, but a lot of people who have extreme wealth, like it's isolating in a weird way. Like I wrote about this in Turtles All the Way Down, but I think that a lot of times, like, you know, everybody wants something from you. Not that like it's a bad thing to be rich, but like, you know, I think that people tend to be on their guard, and so it is a very different thing. And I'm learning about it. I'm trying to learn about it, but also maybe we can do this without them. Like, you know. Like maybe we can. And that's one thing that I've been really struck by in this process is that so many of the people who are making monthly donations or making or even joining the matching fund are not people of like extraordinary means. They are people of extraordinary commitment. And that in the end, like is a lot cooler and more interesting to me anyway. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. You know, I think there are so many people who are making $10 a month donations, and over the course, if that's matched to $20 a month, and over the course of that becomes $240 a year, and over the course of 5 years, that's over $1,000. So that's a huge donation. It's just made slowly and in an ongoing way, which also requires people to pay ongoing attention to that investment that they're making, which is more valuable to me in the end than somebody just donating $1,000 and never thinking about Sierra Leone again. A huge part of the only reason this injustice exists in the first place is that it's easy to ignore the problems in Kono. And if it wasn't easy to ignore the problems in Kono, they would be addressed. And that's an uncomfortable fact, but I think it's true. I think when we become aware of injustice, we get better at addressing it. And not that we're universally good, but there's a great there's a great poem about this by Paige Lewis I think it's called "The Fort Wayne Planetarium Rejected My Proposal," and I love this poem so much. And ultimately, it talks about how we don't address the injustices we don't see, and we don't address the injustices that are easy to look away from. So, yeah, that's something I'm thinking about a lot. Okay. Okay. So I want to answer some questions. If you have any questions, and if you have asked questions, ask them again, because I didn't see them earlier. Thank you. Some people are talking about Mountains Beyond Mountains, which is a great book and is an introduction to kind of Partners in Health's origin story, and how Ophelia Dahl and Paul Farmer and the other founders of PIH started working in Haiti. It's really good. Catherine says, based on the numbers you listed in the beginning, it sounds like we're quite a while from being able to break ground. Well, so we're quite a while from being able to break ground regardless, because it will take time. It is taking time. Like right now, it's happening to work out the plan, the architecture, to get all of the building permits and everything. Like that takes a certain amount of time to get the supplies and all that. So right now they're still able to go full out. My goal is to not have fundraising be a bottleneck. Like I don't want the fundraising to slow down this process. And so I am very focused on that. Whether or not we are far away depends on what kind of donations come in the next few months, which is something I'm thinking about. Hopefully we are not that far away. It's I think we have 18 months to do this, but it would be great to do it in less. So that's kind of where I'm at in thinking about this. But PIH is also working really hard on raising money independent of us, and they've already raised a ton independent of us, and that will continue. And so I think between us, I think we can get there. Peg says, what is the minimum to be a matching donor? It's $2,000, but also some people have donated less, and that's still very welcome. You don't really get anything for being a matching donor, but I will send you a card. Just a little thank you card. It's not worth $2,000. It's not that good of a card, but it's something. Do you have plans to go to Sierra Leone again soon? I would love to go back to Sierra Leone soon. I want Hank to go this year. So I'm hopeful that Hank will be able to go this year, and then maybe I'll be able to go next year. Hank is traveling a lot right now. In fact, I think he's on a plane right now. And of course, he is also the CEO of Complexly and of DFTBA.com. And he's always coming up with new business ideas. And I am not the CEO. I don't know if y'all know this, but I work for Hank. I report to him. I do my annual check-in with Hank. So this means that I have somewhat more time. Also, Hank has a book coming out. He's going to be on tour for the book. I don't know how Hank does it. I really don't. It seems very stressful and difficult to me, even from the outside. But yeah, Hank is Hank is my boss. And I'm so grateful. I got demoted Oh, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I have to scroll back to see your questions. Okay. How much is your family involved with this process? How do you speak with your young children about these health issues? So they're very involved. Henry and Alice have both donated to the project with their own money, well, I mean, is it their own money? It's money they made from doing chores and from allowances. Is it theirs? I don't know, but it was generous of them anyway. And we talk in our family a lot about about tithing, about secular tithing, like making sure that at least 10% of your income or wealth goes to causes outside of your own needs and wishes. And they've bought into that. I mean, for now, they're still at an age where we can influence their thinking pretty heavily. And so, yeah, it is something that we talk about a lot. It's hard to look. It's very hard to talk about child death with children, and so we maybe don't talk about that the same way that we do talk about it with y'all. And I don't know. I don't know if that's the right way. I have no idea what the best way to parent is. If I've learned anything in the last 10 years, it's that I don't know what good parenting is, and I don't know how to tell other people to parent, but I don't even know how to do it myself. But yeah, it's something that we talk a lot about and think a lot about. And you don't see Sarah and Catherine as much because their lives are not as public, especially Catherine's, but even Sarah's, like her work is public, but her life isn't. But they're both deeply involved in this, and Sarah has pushed me so many times to think more about what we can do, and it's one of my favorite things about her is that I'm very grateful for that. What's a good elevator speed? Okay. All right. Okay, so somebody. Okay, a few other things. Creating a so one of the like fundraising strategies that we haven't used yet, and that I go back and forth on, is the like. The classic example of this is the Heifer International buy a goat for a friend. It's $100, but you don't get the goat. Somebody who needs the goat gets the goat. This is it's so narratively great. And I love a good story. Obviously I'm a huge fan of narrative. And it's narratively really strong. It's a little bit of an oversimplification in real life, of course, because yes, community health worker salary costs X number of dollars per month, less than you'd think. But it is also true that, like, if you donate that, does it go to a community health worker? Well, sort of, like a percentage of it does, but a percentage of it goes to buy syringes, and a percentage of it goes to buy surgical gloves, and a percentage of it goes to support clean water so that the hospital or clinic can have running water, and a percentage of it goes to electricity bills. And so narrativizing donations is effective. I just feel like it's also like an oversimplification, and one of the things we really want to do is find ways to talk about the complexity of systems building without having it without oversimplifying it, and making the case that, like, yeah, this is complex and it's multifaceted, and there is no like silver bullet when it comes to improving the lives of people living in poverty and decreasing the injustice of the radical injustice of maternal mortality. There is no silver bullet, but by investing in the whole system, you get outsized results. And I think that is really strongly backed up by data. Like, I think that the data for systems building, for primary and secondary healthcare systems building, is so strong. But it's not A, it's not narrative, and B, it can't make the kind of cost-effective case that so-called vertical interventions can. So the classic example of a really effective vertical intervention is mosquito nets. Incredibly effective vertical intervention. Doesn't do anything like mosquito nets, distributing mosquito nets doesn't do much to strengthen the overall healthcare system or to strengthen, but it does dramatically reduce the number of people who die from malaria, which is great. There are lots of other vertical interventions that are not as successful. Most others aren't. One that would stand out as being less successful would be like distributing free shoes, for instance. But I think that the data is pretty strong that the building systems has a long-term generational impact that can't be beat. So yeah, that's part of the case I try to make, but I don't know. Yeah, Shiny says, I think the effective altruism community would be into this, but you have to prove the case with numbers. Yeah, I mean, this is a difficult thing. So sometimes I think that a lot of what effective altruism is trying to do is super important, like is trying to bring a measure of accountability to these conversations instead of just mostly it being about donors feeling good about donating money. And that is really important because historically, there have been a lot of kind of neo-colonialist approaches to aid, and a lot of those have helped very little, and at times even been harmful. And so I think looking at what is effective is really important. What actually moves the needle? The problem is that it's easy to conflate what is measurable or straightforwardly measurable with what is important. So the classic example of this that I know of is that Partners in Health many years ago said we cannot go on not treating multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, which was the World Health Organization's recommendation, because treating MDR-TB was very, very expensive. And it required like a long-term treatment plan. So you had to have people come back and take medication at different times of the day. People had to find a way to take medication at different times of the day for like a 6 or 9 or 12-month period. And so it was felt by the WHO that A, this isn't cost effective, and B, this will only too many patients will be lost to follow up, I think is the phrase. Like too many patients will drop out midway through, and so it won't work. And it was very, very expensive for PIH to prove that all of those assumptions were wrong, because at the time the antibiotics cost a ton of money. And you had to take more than one of them, and you had to take them for a long time, and you had to follow up carefully with patients, which required community health workers, and et cetera, et cetera. It was very, very cost ineffective. But you know what else is cost ineffective is having multi-drug resistant tuberculosis spread like wildfire throughout the world. Like that is also a health problem. That is also an undesirable outcome. And what PIH was able to show was A, you can treat multi-drug resistant tuberculosis and have cure rates that are higher than they are in the US. In fact, the cure rate for MDR-TB in Sierra Leone is higher than the world average, a lot higher. That's one of the things that they talk about in the impact statement. But there was still the argument that, oh, it's not cost effective. Well, it wasn't cost effective until drug companies realized the size of the marketplace, that they weren't treating 10 patients, they were treating 10, they could treat 10 million. And B, governments and other big organizations and PIH worked with drug companies to get the prices lower. And now you can treat MDR-TB for literally 99% less than those first cases. So was that treatment of MDR-TB that was incredibly expensive cost ineffective? Well, yes, in the short run, but in the long run, it was one of the most cost-effective things that's been done in global health in the last 20 years or 30 years, whatever it's been, because it changed the way that MDR-TB gets treated, and it meant that now hundreds of thousands of people won't die of multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. So like, it's easy to say like, that's not a good investment, but it's the best investment. So figuring out how to measure cost effectiveness, how to measure what success looks like, and not kind of falling into the easy trap of what's easy to measure or what's straightforward to measure is really important and really, really difficult. It's incredibly complex. That's the problem with making a case for systems building, is that it's complicated and it's complex and it is at times inefficient, but the overall benefit is so long-term and so generational that it's very efficient in the long run. All right, that's my argument anyway. Brandy has proposed a DFTBA staff trip to Kona, which I think is a great idea. Okay, so I want to answer more questions. I have to scroll way up because there've been a bunch of comments and I talked for too long, which is typical of me. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Hold on. Give me a second to read. Talk amongst yourselves. Please record your annual reviews. Oh my God. No, I'm not recording my annual review with Hank. He's always very nice. I mean, he can't fire me. I guess he could. Yeah, nobody loved being demoted as much as I have ever. Okay, what can I say to people unsure about PIH's credibility as an organization? It has a ton of international credibility, and I mean, I always tell people to just Google it, and it has a lot of international credibility. To me, and this is hard to do because you don't like often run into people, but one of the things that I found over and over and over again is if you talk to people about Haiti, like when I've met with people who are from Haiti or people who work in Haiti, and I ask them about, aid after the earthquake, they'll say like, oh, so much of it was wasted, so much of it was lost. We got this terrible cholera outbreak that started with aid workers, and it's just, it's been it has not been a rousing success. And I'll say like, are there any organizations you would support? And like, so many people say, oh, Partisan Health, because they have a reputation for being for listening, for focusing on the needs of the people they're trying to help, and from grounding that work in a place of listening instead of a place of parachuting in with solutions. So yeah, I think that's important. Just tell them to Google it. Emma participates in both tithing and secular tithing, which is super hardcore. I don't do a great job of. I don't always do a great job of that. Okay. Really weird question. If we access a parent's financial resources as well as our own, don't steal money from your parents. I mean, this is important. It's not selling money to your parents. It's important. Okay. Philip says, hey, John, in one of my emails I got, they asked me to make my donation into a monthly donation. What's the benefit of like a larger donation versus multiple smaller donations? So there's and also Emma has suggested that we come up with like a flyer or a newsletter or something that people could send out to people they know that gives a breakdown of what PIH is and what our goal is with this particular project, which is a great idea and something that I would like to do. But I don't know how to do it, but that's such a good idea. So let's remember that idea and try to do it. Maybe we can do, maybe that can be a project in the Discord together. So what is the benefit of a monthly donation versus, so the benefit of making a one-time donation is there are a few, right? Like if you make a larger one-time donation, potentially the credit card fees might be slightly lower, like per dollar, just I don't know that that's true, but it's true in other things. Like it's true in other forms of credit card transactions. And then, but the benefit to a monthly donation is that it's ongoing support. Both you are more likely, or I am more likely anyway, to pay attention when I'm paying for something every month. But also, it may extend out past a year. So if you're thinking like, oh, do I give $500 a year, or do I give $60 a month? I'm really bad at math. $40 a month, 42. Do I give $42 a month? I think that the benefit of giving $42 a month is potentially that it extends beyond that 12-month period, and it goes into the next year and the next. And as I tried to talk about earlier, like that ongoing support is going to be really important, because this isn't just about building a building; it's about making a long-term, ongoing investment in the healthcare system in Kono. So, both ways are great. But I know organizations like to have revenue that they can depend on. Like, we're very grateful to our Patreon patrons, because we don't know if ad rates will go up or go down, and we don't know if we're going to sell an ad on a particular episode of SciShow, but we do know exactly how much money is coming in through Patreon, and that allows us to know like about how many people we're able to hire and all that stuff. Okay. A couple more questions. I've been disappointed by the interaction I've gotten on Facebook with posting about PIH, but that may be more of a statement of Facebook's algorithms. Yeah, it may be. I don't know, but look, people, if you're looking for a reason not to try to address a problem, you can find it. Like, you can always find it. But I think that we've worked with PIH for over 10 years. We've seen it. We've seen it in Rwanda. We've seen it work in Rwanda, in Haiti, in Peru, in Russia, and I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see it in Sierra Leone too. Okay, I have to go soon, but I don't. Yeah. Max says, I don't have a credit card, only PayPal, which doesn't allow me to make a monthly donation. Yeah, I think then just donate what you can when you can. I know that's a big problem for a lot of people. And it's an issue that we've had with PayPal as well, back in the subbable days, pre-Patreon. And it's hard to solve for reasons that when it was explained to me, it was explained to me like 30 or 40 different times, and each time, like 3 or 4 words into the explanation, like my mind would just go blank, and I would enter into some kind of semi-conscious state. It's very, very complicated why it's a problem, but it is a problem. So yeah, we know that lots of people donate by PayPal, and we are really grateful, and that it's fine. It makes it hard to do a monthly donation, but you can kind of just donate what you can when you can. Okay, this is a good last question from Aiden, who asks, I've been reading Mountains Beyond Mountains. From reading Mountains Beyond Mountains, it seems like Haiti is still in need. Why was Sierra Leone picked over Haiti, or anywhere else for that matter? That's a great question, and the answer to why Sierra Leone has many. I think there are many different possible answers to that. And I should probably come up with just one instead of hemming and hawing. But there is a lot of need in Haiti. Haiti remains an extremely poor country, and there is also, however, a lot of support for PIH's programs in Haiti. They've proven themselves over a long time. They have big donors who provide ongoing support. They have a lot of institutional support. That's not to say that there's no need to donate to unrestricted funds for PIH Sarah and I donate to unrestricted PIH funds, and a lot of that money goes to Haiti. And the Project for Awesome has for the last 10 years raised unrestricted funds for PIH, much of which goes to Haiti. That is a more mature project. It's ongoing. There's a constant need for expansion. But for instance, the teaching hospital that PIH supports just became the first teaching hospital, I think, in any low-income country in the world to receive the highest level of accreditation for training. So it's able to train people of many different specialties at an extremely high level. That's whether community health workers or nurses or doctors or specialists or surgeons or whatever. In Sierra Leone, the situation is much different and much more in its beginning stages. If you look at a country like Rwanda, where PIH has been for a while, there's a cancer center that PIH supports in Rwanda, and that also serves as a teaching hospital. So the hope here, so I think we saw an opportunity to work with an organization that we really like in a country where the Ministry of Health is, I think, very serious about trying to make systemic improvements to the healthcare system. So there's support from the government, and there's an opportunity with PIH. They have great partners. They know how to get stuff done. And so we saw an opportunity to be able to follow something from the beginning for a long time that currently isn't well supported. So like the amount of funding going in to strengthen the healthcare system in Kono is it's impossibly underfunded. I think that the Sierra Leonean government has like $40 per person per year to spend on healthcare. If they spend the same percentage of their GDP on healthcare that we spend in the United States, which is we spend more than any other country in the world. So 40 or 45, something like that. You can't have a healthcare system for $45 a person that meets the needs of people effectively. And so we see an opportunity to be able to follow a story over a long, long time, and 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 years from now, be able to have charted that story in a way that makes the case to the world that we don't have to live in a world where any country or any community has a child mortality rate of 10%, or for that matter, any country or any community has a child mortality rate of 3% or 1%. I mean, to be honest, like we don't need to live in a world where any community has a child mortality rate of 1%. Like Sierra Leone's child mortality rate went down by 90%, it would still be too high. Same thing with maternal mortality. If it went down by 90%, it would still be way too high. And so I think the hope is that over 10 or 20 years, if we make the case that this is not necessary anywhere in the world, and that, it's been shown that it's not necessary in the place where it was seen as the hardest to do it. It was seen as the most impossible, where the system had the longest way to go. It makes the case that it shouldn't be accepted anywhere, and big institutional donors come in and invest far more in healthcare systems and primary healthcare systems and this kind of secondary healthcare systems. And we see, that change ripple out from Kono. So that's the opportunity that we see. But that's a very long-term opportunity. In the short term, I think the answer to why Sierra Leone is because the need is immediate and it's an emergency, and it's an emergency that we see an opportunity to address in a meaningful way. And we think that PIH and the people that they're supporting in Sierra Leone have a way to solve this problem. What they don't have is the resources to solve it. And we do have those resources, and that's why that's ultimately why Sierra Leone. Thank you all again for being here. We're really excited and really grateful that you're here. This stream will be archived if you want to share the link with anybody, with people who are also supporters or people who aren't. And hopefully by this time next month, we'll be able to do another show with updates. I think the big things for me is that I have to develop a chart, which is exciting. It's a learning opportunity for me. We're going to try to make a one-page flyer pitch deck, thing, and we're going to hopefully try to get a little Discord or Slack or both off the ground. Maybe just Discord. Discord's great. Thanks in advance to all the Tuatarians who just found out about the Discord. Yeah, so that's the stuff that we'll try to get off the ground by this time next month. Thank you again for your support. It means so much, and I feel so lucky to be able to work on this project with the folks at PIH and with all of y'all. It's really a great. It's just a great privilege, and I'm really excited for the future. It's still only, it's been a while, but it's still only 4 months, and we have a long way to go. But having you be part of this with us from the first few steps of this marathon means a lot. So thank you, and hopefully we'll be able to talk more next month. All right, take care. Bye. Do I know how to turn off? No, I don't. So maybe this live